Welcome to episode 1 of the Leader Equation. Christy, Grossman, and I are here, and we're super excited to be launching this today. And of course, we have the best first guests ever. We have Seth Campbell, we have Vlad Kats from 5 Doors, who are joining us. They're going to talk about all things leadership, equation-wise. They're also going to talk about the real estate climate right now, which we're really excited about, and a lot of people are talking about, so there's a lot there. We want to make sure that we jump right in, and so I'm going to kick it over to Christy Grossman so that she can kind of walk us through what the next steps here are and what this is going to be about as you guys start to join us every single week on Friday at 2 p.m.
Yeah, Lindsay and I have been talking about this for probably 7 years before podcasts even existed. So we're super excited. So the leader equation, we are going to be chatting about all things entrepreneur-leader relationship, owners, founders, CEOs, COOs, ops bosses, all kinds of leadership. And this is not just real estate. This is all kinds of entrepreneurial businesses. So we have art, we have science, what works, what doesn't work, how did you find your person, how did your person find you, and we're going to explore it all. What adds to the leadership formula, what subtracts, what divides, and most importantly, what multiplies. So I'm going to take you guys through, if you're willing to just jump on the leader equation train, a quick fire so our audience can get to know you real quickly. Yeah. So I'm going to fire real quick. You ready?
Yeah.
Years in business.
Which business?
Like what? Yeah. Together, or you mean?
Together.
Yeah.
6, probably.
Officially 2014, so 5.
All right.
But
okay.
known each other
it's supposed to be quick, you guys. You got to know the answers quick. All right. Year 1 profit.
I don't know if that's a good.
At least 40 years.
Yeah. It's like an married couple.
Yeah.
So you can take that for how you want. All right. I'm sorry.
All right.
This is quick fire. Let's go.
Quick fire.
Quick fire. Come on.
What was the second question?
Year 1 profit.
For 5 Doors?
Yeah.
We have
multiple
9 companies.
Okay, well you take it however you want.
That's fine. So year 1 profit for 5 Doors was minus $98,000.
Okay, last year's profit.
Profit.
Last year was break even.
And trending this year.
This year, 20% profit margin. As a company, about 400,000.
Okay. How many are on 5 Doors Network teams?
Currently 8 locations, 114 contributing members.
Awesome. And how many streams of income do each of you have?
I have 9.
I think I'm at 12.
And if you had a superpower, what is it? It's obviously not speed. All right, we'll skip that one.
We'll skip that one.
Let's dive into the.
No, don't skip
it. Go.
What'd you skip?
Which one?
Superpower.
We're skipping the superpower unless you want to.
Then we're diving in. That's it. That's the last question.
All right. Let's do it. What's my superpower? What would you say?
Superpower? Oh, that's such a good one. Yours would be predicting the future.
All right, and
perfect for today's call.
Yours would be understanding the real human, not the one that is showing up, but who's underneath that.
Very good. Okay, so be careful if you guys are listening, because Vlad has X-ray vision.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. All right, yeah, X-ray vision of the soul.
Yes, and to think we almost skipped that, so those are good things to do. All right, well, so let's talk through how you guys kind of came together. I know that, Vlad, you were an agent. You had a team first, then you became the team leader, then you went into 5 Doors. So walk us through, what did that look like going from owning your own team and being in business for yourself to partnering with a market center and Seth, more importantly, and how did you know he was the right person to partner with?
Well, I'll answer the last question first. Definitely his sense of humor.
Yes.
Definitely. That's at the top.
Gets me along.
Yeah.
Gets me very far.
So, how did I know to get into a business partnership with Seth? So yes, I had a 7th level team at that point, owned a short sale processing company. It was 2012, 2013 timeframe. A couple of things were happening to me personally. One is I realized that in order for me to grow my businesses, I had to grow myself, right? Just like the bold law says, your business grows to the extent that you do. And when I looked in the room that I was sitting in, I was the leader. And 90% of the time, fortunate or unfortunate, however you look at it, I was the smartest person in the room. And I realized that that's not going to get my people to where to where I thought they wanted to go and to where they wanted to go. Okay, so Seth, at that point, you were a regional director here in Maryland, D.C. region, and you just took over this market center, Keller Williams legacy. And I quickly realized that I could learn a lot. Not only could I learn, my people could learn. And then another thing that was happening at the same time, as a mega agent for, at that point, about 5 years or so, to be honest with you, I was getting bored. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that the better that I got as a sales practitioner, the more transactional the relationship that I had with my people and my clients became. And I have a heart to serve. That's what I realize now. And so, how do I become a better leader, and how do I let my heart to serve shine? Team role is a perfect opportunity. Once I learned about it, and once I was bought into the vision that Seth as the OP created.
Love that. So when you decided to become a team leader, there's obviously team leader roles open all over the place. Why Seth?
Well,
Seth, no offense, Seth, but just a good question.
That's good.
Well, one of the things that attracted me to Seth as a leader is just how big of a vision that he created here in the Pikesville Market Center. We use the analogy of a lattice, right, that we learned from Bo Minkiti. Yeah. And it was very clear to me that this dude was a really tall lattice that, roses like myself can latch on to. And I also thought, interestingly, as I reflect on those times, I also thought that my superpower, I didn't know that they were superpowered back then, but my powers could help him actually grow as well and help him and his people reach their goals. So
that's interesting. Love that.
The beginning as a match and a win-win. So it's not just me climbing the lattice, but it was, how do I make the lattice taller?
Yeah.
And finally, I have to talk about the mission that we have in all of our organizations. In Pikesville Market Center, now it's 7 locations, so you can't just talk about the one. It's transforming lives through real estate. In 5 doors, it's building generational wealth through real estate. So none of those are about us. Yep. And it was really clear to me about Seth when he came into this region, and when we started having deeper conversations, when I raised my hand for the recruit select process back then, it was that his life was not about him.
That's interesting. I love that. The synergy of the two of you together is way more than a one-way relationship.
Yeah, and then so Seth, let's turn it over to you. How did you know, or did you know, it's probably a better question, that Vlad would come into your organization and just kill it? Or, was that a hunch? Was it a gut feeling? What was happening there?
Yeah, I would say it very much was like what career visioning tells us, or back then Recruit Select, is it was a high probability yet uncertain, right? So it's interesting. When I came here to be the regional director in Maryland, D.C., I immediately started identifying those who stood out that I thought were talent, right? Because I'd already been trained up by Gary that talent is the name of the game. It's more important than anything else we do. And really set on a mission to create that conversation inside this region, right? And become the region that focused on talent and teaching others the talent business, right? So as I traveled around the region, I quickly made a short list of those people who stood out to me as leadership folks that were not yet in leadership roles, and Vlad was right at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. And then I actually pushed some other owners in this area, like, you need to talk to Vlad about leadership opportunities. You need to talk to Vlad about being a TL and OP, and people didn't take that. There was always, and it really showed me, like, nobody's a prophet in their own land. They're like, you haven't seen the evil side of Vlad, or whatever, things that people now say about me that I've been here so long. And it's funny. It was all there. So, started investing more time together. We went through the process. I took over launching the Pikesville Market Center, and he raised his hand back again on that conversation, and we just picked it up. And actually was like down to probably 2 candidates, and it was real clear to me that Gary teaches like you don't create success, you latch onto it, and that you get into business with the person who's going to knock it out of the park next year without you, and you get an opportunity to be part of their success. So I just flashed back and said, like, all right, this guy's crushing it. He succeeds at what he does. He's going to knock something out of the park next year. I want us to be part of his success. And what was real clear to me is not just that he builds a successful business, but exactly what he said. He has this extra mission on his heart, which is really what he's powered by, of impacting people's lives in a big way. And it was real clear that he wasn't fully fulfilling that as the meg agent, right? He wanted a bigger playground, and he had that leadership bug. So that lined up really well, and built this business up to prior to real profit, like $800,000 profit. If you load back in our taxes, inside of 5 years, 4.5 years, and then found his replacement in Tina Bellavo, who's a ninja, right? Kills it, right? So it's the perfect success story. Then you look at like, okay, and he's transformed so many people's lives. Took this brokerage to #1 brokerage in the state of Maryland of any company in market share, and built up a really strong team. And then I, had this side project of 5 doors that makes money some months, loses money some months, and I just keep pouring all the money back into it because I don't need it. And yet I had people in there that just wanted to spend their way to success. And yet Vlad clearly has a business mind with this mission. So it makes sense for him to become my partner. So he owns part of 5 doors, comes in, and overnight, cuts expenses 46%, remodels the company, causes our people to make a lot more money. And, you heard what our profit will be this year. But that's only because of how late it started in the year, right? Like last month, our net profit was like $84,000. So it's on pace for $1 million net from nothing, from off and on profit inside of 7 months, right, of turning the corner this year.
So Seth, I have a question for you. So it was kind of a no-brainer to get into business with Vlad with the success he had, because you watched him succeed. You didn't just, he wasn't, he was proven talent. Did you get down?
He was proven as
in other areas,
and then he becomes emerging as a team leader.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But he had a track record of success. He had a trajectory.
Yep.
Did you get far down the line in conversation with other potential people that could have stepped into that role?
Oh yeah. I think on that one, I probably had like 20 candidates at the high level, and I had 10 that I was in deeper conversation. And then I actually he was one of 2 final candidates. I was already through like reference checks and everything, and even like talking to the ALC about.
I think that's unusual. I think a lot of people don't have the patience to do that.
They don't.
Yeah, this guy is very patient. Sometimes even
which is crazy. I'm super
nuts.
Impatient, yet on these. When it comes to people, right, I will force myself to be slow to hire.
Well, one of the things that I learned from you on hiring and getting in business with people is you're okay with passing on a good one.
Yeah.
Right? Because
that's a great one.
Right? And because you care so much about the other person. At least that's how I perceive it. Oftentimes I see operating partners or mega agents put people in front of a bus. By putting them in roles way too early. It's like putting a high school pitcher, sometimes it's high school pitcher into the major leagues.
Yeah.
Now there is a 1 in 100% chance that they're going to be an all-star and a Hall of Famer and all of that stuff, but most of them will tear rotator's cuff or something like that, get injured. And it's you care so much about people that you're okay with letting what looks like letting them down.
Yeah.
Rather than actually getting them hurt.
And one of the challenges, I have a high tolerance for pain, and it drives people around me crazy. Like I will let a business or a group burn while I am interviewing, and sometimes too long, and sometimes I lose people, and sometimes it's funny. There's people that will jump off the ship, and then I make the hire, and they're like, "Dang it, I should have waited." I'm like, "Yeah, I told you."
Well, let me ask you this question, because especially with a team leader, I know Vlad turned around and did this with team. So let me ask you, how do you determine if it's an agent who's already in business, has their own business? You know, there are a lot of times when we look at that person and we're like, they just want a salary, they want to get out of selling, they're done with the transaction. Like, how do you know the difference between somebody who's like really going to kill it in leadership and really wants that? And I know there's a part of it that's like, you got to know his heart, but what did you see in Tina too? Like, how do you know that difference? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. It is a really smart question. I kind of have my own little thing I'll rattle off real quick. I think hiring from within, I believe hiring from within is always better.
Yes.
I'd rather hire emerging from within than proven from the outside. If it's going to be on the outside, it's probably going to need to be proven or closer to proven. On the inside, I'll go emerging because they already understand the culture. They already understand how we think. And so much of what we do is how we think. I was just saying, like, we should have had a better background. This is our little war room that we have stats. I mean, this is our thinking strategy room, and we do a lot of that, right? And we're always pushing the envelope in these businesses, in the brokerage world, in the sales world, in the expansion world. You always see us on the bleeding edge of what's possible and redefining that. So emerging from within works better because they already understand that pace and that level of thinking. And then and that's my preference, right? And then I take a step further, right? They have to have the character, and I think that specific transition from mega to team leader actually becomes more about their gasoline, right? Because persistence is the single greatest determiner of success, right? We know that science has actually proven that, research has proven that, grit, right? And so then I always look at what's the gasoline of the grit, and if the gasoline is about others, and it's a really big need to impact others, a large crowd, and the person has a proven skill set to do that, then they've got to be willing to do what it takes. There's plenty of people that actually have a gasoline of impacting others, and then their version of what it takes is coaching, consulting, not pushing a relationship. Vlad will look somebody in the eyes because he loves them enough and say, like, are you really willing to let your kid grow up homeless because you don't want to make the right decision here? Like, he'll I don't know if you'd say that. He'd say something like that, right? He'll risk a relationship because he cares about something. So he's willing to do the extra
Sacrifice.
yeah, that will do that. So he has the right character, he has the right heart, and he has the right gasoline fuel to impact others, and he's willing to take risks to get that done. Those ingredients are in place, like, we can go really, really far together.
Love that.
I love that. Well, and then, so let's transition into like when you guys actually first partner. And so you can look at 5 doors or you can look at the team leader role. It's whatever works best. But walk me through, what do you guys think was your biggest challenge, and what do you think was the very best thing you guys have done so far together?
It's a great question.
Yeah, biggest thing is I think, tens of thousands of lives that we've impacted. Like, we've transformed the conversation in the state of Maryland about real estate businesses.
Yeah, we were kind of having this conversation over text the other day with Tina, right? And just kind of pausing and looking back so far, even all the people that are no longer with us that still come and tell us like the impact that being with us has made on their life, right? And how much that lines up with our mission. Yeah, we don't monetize those people anymore with them, yet it really lines up, and it's pretty significant in a short amount of time. And that's, it never felt like it along the way. It felt like pure failure, and it still does, right? And we still beat ourselves up. Yet that's the best thing that we've done together. I think some of the challenges we've had have been pretty good challenges. They've been more a matter of, fighting it out, right? Vlad and I have a way of like really fighting with each other.
Tell us what that looks like, because I think a lot of people have that challenge on their team and they don't know how to do it productively.
Yeah. Well, I think that rule, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Like, I think the rule that we have that has served us best has been quick to communicate. Like,
in the expectations conversation.
Yeah, and like no holds barred. So like, it's funny if we randomly or rarely have somebody witness that, they're like, oh my gosh, you guys like say that, right, to each other. It's like, hey, 5 minutes ago you said this, and I think that you don't value me. Like, this is a story I made it mean that I'm not important to you. You don't value me. Or, hey, I'm feeling insecure. I don't feel like I'm good enough to do this job. Like, that's me saying that. That's him saying that. Like, we actually will say that stuff to each other. And or like, hey, that email you sent, like, I'm pissed off because X, Y, Z, and then we just talk through it. Where we go wrong, where I see others go wrong, is like they skip that conversation. They form a whole bunch of stories. Then the brain looks for evidence, and there's a wedge in that relationship. So, our struggles over the years have been in versions of conflict, and anytime we've let that space out too long, in my opinion.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think just stories just proliferate, and then it's, you're getting closer to the edge rather than, it's starting it at the beginning, and just talking it out. And listen, some people may say, well, how do you know how it's going to be received and all of that stuff, right? Well, you just have to trust the dude.
Yeah, that's it.
You guys are both super high D personalities. You guys are two of the highest D personalities I know. So you're on equal footing in that conversation. What would you share with people who maybe have director of operations or their next level leader who is not a high D?
So I believe it's leaders' job to create the space for anybody in their organization to come in and say, you suck.
Love that.
What does that space kind of look like? Like, is it just, hey, we have an open door policy and you can always come to me? Is it direct communication, setting those expectations all the time?
Expectations isn't enough, right? That's the beginning, because people still are afraid. Like, every time somebody says to me, I had one today actually on a retention conversation, and this individual had all this fear and trepidation about approaching me about something, and I'm like, why didn't you talk to me? Like, what? And every time I hear, I was scared, you're too busy, wasn't sure what you're going to say, that's my fault.
Yep.
I didn't create the space. And I could have said it 1,000 times. You can call me anytime, you can say anything, you're my 20%. And what happened is I didn't build some version of trust. Like the 5 dysfunctions of a team, Patrick Lencioni, the first dysfunction is beautiful for this. And I think that comes from hanging out, right? So even you and I probably earlier this year started getting a little far apart. And we knew the solution was go and have some conversation. And by the way, by then it's very late. There's this big stacked conversation. And it's like, I feel this way about you, and I can't even put my finger on exactly why, but I give like 14 points of evidence. That's not the thing. There was a trigger that was stories created, and all the evidence is BS after that, right? And it's very hard to weed through that. And we went straight to a solution of like, we need to hang out together. And you've moved the 5 Doors headquarters to another building, one of our other 7, we have 7 Keller Williams offices. You moved, over to there. We don't even see each other that much. We don't talk that much because, he's doing well inside 5 Doors. So, like, hanging out, right, starts to create that. And when people understand, like, you're vulnerable, I'm a human too, then hierarchy doesn't matter. Like, we don't have a hierarchy here.
Yeah, it's trust.
And yeah, it does. It's right. It's just hanging out and like, hey, I struggle with my job too. I struggle with my insecurities too. I struggle with this too. And the more the leader opens up about that, it doesn't have to be crying and doing all that. It's just being real.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that.
We all have doubts. We all have struggles. And the more we...
Sorry.
Oh, good.
I interviewed Noah Ostroff and Jake Dreyfus last year, I think at Maryland DC Masterminds, and they said the same thing, that the less time they're together, the more that the trust erodes. And so they put in a monthly, they called it date night. Have a date day that Noah would plan actually. They would do. I thought that was cool.
Do it.
Yeah, and I think that's like that's a leadership fail right across the board. That's what I see the most is in this like passing of the baton, which is part of what we're looking at here in depth, is, the leader starts to feel like, well, they're doing really well. They're good. So there's almost a hands-off, like, I don't want to micromanage them. I don't want to whatever. And then all of a sudden there's, well, am I good? I'm not hearing I'm doing good. And it's a funny thing. Even if that leader that did take over is, this brilliant leader who shouldn't need the pat on the back or shouldn't need to hear from you, to some degree they have to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, would you say that, Vlad, too?
I have a couple of things to say about that. One, about your style that I'm learning a lot from is in order to create that space is that leader is not afraid to say I was wrong,
Mm.
okay, or
Yeah.
that you were right in public.
Mm.
And then the second one is allowing people to make mistakes and sometimes really big ones.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what that looks like, Vlad, because people throw that out there all the time. Like a team leader will say, oh, director of operations, you can fail forward. We believe in failing forward here. But what does that look like?
Okay, so for me, one of my defining legacies in legacy was, my mishiring of market center administrators. This Seth stood by me, right?
I did make fun of you in many
Yes, he
provision
did.
classes publicly.
He
That's
did.
Probably not
I wasn't there, which is the most important part. So it's all right. So what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do differently? How can I support you? What support do you need? No worries. Don't worry about it. Right? There were times that I'm like, I remember coming to you when I was a team leader. I'm like, dude, maybe this is not for me. I can't I've gone to Recruit Select / career visioning like a dozen times, and maybe this is not for me. Period.
Mm.
Right? Because
we talk like that all the time, and it can be anything. It can be like, hey, somebody comes to me like with a concern on how they were talked to or led, and like I go right to it. Somebody goes to him with a rumor about me or a concern about me, and he just calls me straight. Like, we don't have any secrets from each other. Anybody ever says, can I talk to you about something in confidence about Vlad or Seth? Our answer is no. We don't really do the triangle thing. How long did it take
you to get to that level of trust?
I want to say fast.
Yeah, I think it's a number of incidents,
I think
right?
It's the frequency.
It's not even time. It's how many times it was tested, right? So even like as Tina and I now build that relationship, I can watch her like nervously, take a chance, and then when she realized like it's okay, she's like, man, I held on to that too long. And then next time it's a little bit faster, and she's like, oh, I don't know why I held on to that at all. And then it starts to disappear. So it's almost like it's number of incidences that we all have this internal mark of like, I'm going to test if that person really will let me fail. And then I as a leader and you as a leader, we've got to know that all right, we said it 100 times, it's okay to fail, and here's the first one they're presenting to us, and we got to really watch our reaction.
Yeah.
And because trust me, they were scared to death. Yeah. And they're putting it on trial. So we intentionally, you have to go out of our way, catch our trigger. And so the more you as a leader can manage your triggers, the more successful you're going to be, period, in life. And too many of us are triggered even unconsciously, and we've got to be very, very conscious of our triggers, and then reward the person so much. Vlad's really good at this. Is he'll reward the person for taking the courage to even speak before he addresses what they just said. And they try to skip by and go back to the, he's like, no. Like, what you did was really courageous. I'm sure that was hard for you to do. And like, he'll make them sit in the fact that he's rewarding them for the fact that they brought something to his attention. Then he'll deal with the content.
I love that. You guys both have a really, really high EQ. If someone's listening on the call and they want to work on developing that skill as a leader, what would you say to them?
Wow. I don't know what your thoughts are. My personal one is like back to self, right? The beginning of leadership is always self-leadership. And specific to that one, it would be what are you doing to eliminate your own personal triggers? Like that I've come to find over and over. You almost can deal with anything in life as long as you can watch your triggers. So there's, transformational coaching on that. That's something that's really helped me a lot. Landmark, things like NLP, that, NLP, that teach us to like understand. There's Michael Singer, Untethered Soul, there's all this stuff, and Michael Singer on SoundsTrue.com, his videos on there, like go buy that course today. It's life-changing. The ability to manage your triggers creates a space for any conversation to happen. Any conversation.
Absolutely. The only thing I'd add to that is that for me personally, this is a learned skill.
Yeah.
One of the things that Seth mentioned in the beginning when he was in the hiring process with me is that he had some negative, reviews about Vlad. And I realized when I was in grad school that the way I led was not for everybody. Meaning that, I rubbed people the wrong way. I did not provide them with the space to be honest. Sometimes just mean, period. And so for me, it's a learning skill. And I'm constantly learning it, right? Even when you think you've mastered it, it's like you're in the very beginning part of mastery on it. And for some it could be books, for others it could be Landmark, and I would or an NLP or any transformational programs out there. And I would say it's a courage to let people into your life. Yeah. Like one of the things that Seth does amazingly, and I think that all of our organizations do amazingly because of that, is share like what we're going through. Because at the end of the day, it's no longer 1980s where you could clock in, clock out, right? We're not running a factory. We're running a human-based business. Yeah. And, welcome to being human, like we say, right?
Yeah, Vlad says it all the time. Like somebody shares, he's like, welcome to being human. And it kind of takes the pressure off the conversation. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to get too far off the range yet. This is very much this conversation becomes very much a spiritual journey for an individual.
Yes.
And at the highest level that they can get their spiritual life straightened out, you start to have grace and respect and understanding for humans, because we all mess up, we all make mistakes, we're all doing the best we can with what we've got, and nobody woke up in the morning saying like, I'm gonna screw your business today, watch. And if they did, then even that is just an internal struggle of them needing to be right or look good, and we have that too. And at the moment we can like deal with our own stuff inside of that, it gives us space to be able to allow that other person to be human and then walk them down through that path.
I love that. I appreciate your transparency, guys. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm just not naturally this way, or I'm not naturally that way. And I think both of you have done the hard work, and that's a sign of a leader.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and what we're going to do, and I just want to encourage people, I know people are watching, feel free to put some questions in. I'm watching those, and so we'll try to get them to answer if we have time. This is the last question that we have here for this topic, and then we're going to kind of transition into what's happening with the real estate world. So we have some questions around that. But walk me through, do you believe, and if so, why do you believe it's so hard to find somebody to take over your business? That number 2 person that really can lead. Like, so do you think it's hard first? And then if so, why? Because I think it's one of the biggest things we see people in our industry especially struggle with, and that passing of the baton. I mean, it's got to be a special person, I think, right?
Well, listen, I don't think I was a special person. It was the partnership that I think that I'm just being honest. Like I knew that I was up to things, but fast forward 5 years, and I'm definitely not in a place where I thought I would be. Meaning I'm far exceeded it, both sources, streams of income, to net worth, to just balance, if you will, opportunity. I don't think that you're looking for a unicorn. I don't think that anybody is looking for a unicorn. Mm-hmm. One of the things that defines my relationship with Seth is his ability to develop people. So like I'm a byproduct of his development, my own as well, right? So that's on one hand. On the other hand is when I teach CV, I know when you teach CV, it's people that conversation arises all the time. And here's what I asked the audience is, how many hours did you spend looking for listings or buyers last week? Okay, and they give me numbers, and that's how many hours did you spend looking for talent last week? And typically, 50% of the audience will have ahas, the other 50 are crying.
Yeah, I think that's it's funny. I actually think I'm terrible at developing people, so it's funny to hear you say that. Yet, yeah, I think that's it. It is hard in the sense that it's a percentage game, and it's a lower percentage, right? So it's a lower percentage of people walking the earth who are ready to take your spot. So then it just becomes, that's the question though, how do people pull this off all the time? And what drives me crazy in one kind of little rant way is, so we had a little, or I read your guys' little commentary on Facebook about the unicorn discussion, and Tina's like, "Don't mention it because I have banned that word." Well, I temporarily
Told us.
2 years ago, and the ban just happened to still be up. And I'll tell you why real quick is I banned that word, and just because there was one individual, then it spread like a freaking virus in my organization, who would use that as a crutch as to why they couldn't find people. And it was like, well, it's unicorn, it's unicorn, it's unicorn. And then I go back to, well, how many people did you talk to? How many people did you reach out to? How many screeners did you do? And well, it's a unicorn. And it was low number, no number, no number. And so I only banned that because I didn't want it to be used as a crutch anymore. Maybe it is a unicorn. Either way, it's a lower percentage of people. And the way you increase that percentage is you go after it. At the end of the day, we're running pretty small businesses. I know they seem big in the world of real estate, but you go look at Google's numbers, you go look at Microsoft, those are big businesses. And you telling me that they can find somebody that can manage money for $100 trillion value company, and we can't find somebody to manage our millions or hundreds of thousands.
I think it's because we're so small that people's mindset gets twisted and focused on the wrong things. So for example, on a small real estate team, when the mega agent, the Rainmaker, has recruited the agents to the team, people are not necessarily buying into the mission and vision. They're often buying into the leader, which I think is a mistake. Yep. Because then when you want to transition and hire the next leader, are the people going to be bought into that person? And you guys experienced this. I think you guys have done this really well. There's probably 2 or 3 teams nationwide that I know what the mission is. I know generational wealth is 5 doors, right? So you guys have been very clear on what your mission is, but I think a lot of people miss on that.
Yeah, I agree. And we learned that early on, right? That we have to recruit to a mission, not to an individual. And then every individual has a piece of that mission, and they're just more value to the company and to the people inside of it. So it's not that we negate the person, because we've made that mistake too. We've removed me too much from the company, removed Vlad too much from the brokerages, right? Mm-hmm. And it turns out like people were there for that relationship also from a value add in addition to the mission. It kind of makes the mission more.
Well, so that was my question, is when I look around at teams like yours or Ben Kinney team or Adam's team or whatever the teams, usually the leader of the team has a fairly high charisma value, a very high connection relationship. They're strong in that area. Mm-hmm. So is that challenging then when you bring the next person in to pass the baton?
Are you saying that Seth has charisma and I have charisma, or the other way around? Just so that we're clear.
I don't know.
Because I don't know.
It's suspect. His charisma is very suspect. Mine is clearly opposite.
Often the leader draws the people.
No.
The leader is.
And by the way, and I used to turn up my charisma and use that to recruit all day. And I had maps, like Cherie Lowry was in my ear, my maps coach at the time, saying, stop doing that, stop doing that. And people would go as soon as I got a little bit of freedom or went to work on the next company or next project. So yeah, I think it's an ingredient. And we do look at that. When you analyze the life cycles of businesses, it becomes very clear you do need to get strategic as to who's jumping in to take over at this next stage. It's not always the same person. So your startup leader, I believe, is not always your next catalyst leader. And then, like when we looked at 5 doors, it was real clear that it had grown so fast and so sloppy that siloed had happened. Profit went way up and then dropped really, really fast because everybody started spending money. There was no systems. I had done a lot of deals to push the envelope of growth. So Vlad has a higher like synergist score. So it is charisma, yet it's a different kind of charisma. It's the kind of charisma that pulls teams together, not just wheels and deals. And that's good for a startup charisma. And his charisma is a business charisma that pulls people together, causes them to think. He's not afraid to cut expenses. He cut out silos. So you start to see like this guy prepares a company for scale. And he's done that. And we're now almost prepared for scale because he's flattened the company, systematized, remodeled everything. People are making way more money now than they've ever made in 5 doors and cut out a lot of layers. And he's just streamlining things there for scale. Somebody who led with just charisma wouldn't have pulled that off. If that makes
No, you can't. But it's almost the opposite too. Is it's hard to bring someone in who doesn't at least have some of their own charisma
yeah.
go along with that when you're
You
handing
need to
the
be
baton.
attractive, right? Because at the end of the day, if I'm going to go work with Vlad and Five Doors, then yes, Five Doors has my mission. I align with that. Yes, I see the financial opportunity, numbers make sense. And then at the end of the day, though, is he going to be the guy that helps me get where I want to go? So the company can do it, the money works, and yet like there's that other factor.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a level of leadership and connectivity that lines up for people.
Yeah. Cool. Linz, do we want to, let's dive into the good stuff.
Let's transition to, you know, where the real estate world is. I know you've been talking a lot, Seth and Vlad, about the real estate climate, the fact that it is really a race to get the consumer, right? And there's a lot going on. So give us just a brief description of how you kind of see things going on and explain, you know, what you're seeing in the world there. And then we have some questions around that too.
Yeah, I mean, I finally decided to speak up because if you know, well, Vlad would know, like probably 3 years ago, I started seeing like, oh my gosh, something's going to happen. And I went to books and I started studying models, systems, platforms long time ago, and getting into that. And then I actually, it's funny because even on my post, like a lot of people have said like, oh, I'm trying to get everybody to KW. And it's funny if you read that, I'm not actually saying that, and yet it's clear that in my opinion, KW is the one that's playing the cards right now. And the truth is though, I was a big skeptic. You rewind 1 year ago, 18 months ago, and I had 2 feet out the door, not even a foot out the door. And I had thought I investigated Keller Williams fully, and I met with the leaders of all of these companies and got really great offers, actually, even to go into leadership, not just for Five Doors or anything to move over. And, you know, we had some tough conversations, right, about exiting this world that are not real public. And I was in these boardrooms and I saw everybody's plans and they revealed everything to me. And I've kept some of that, you know, or everything that secret, you know, because I signed NDAs and stuff inside that. Yeah, I've seen the game board. You know, some of that's apt to change, right? Because this stuff modifies pretty quickly.
Yep.
And then, you know, Gary reached out to me. I spent some time. I investigated that. Either way, regardless of the company, my issue, you know, that I would push agents on is that we're still fighting the wrong battle. And I'll keep saying it as many different ways as I can say it until it resonates. The battle is for first point of contact. And the issue with that is we're in this weird space where we've got the old world, which is really today. I call it the old world, but it's today. It's how we do business today. It's how we make money. And then there's the new world, which we're on the bridge in between those two, and we're moving very quickly over to that bridge. And as of today, we haven't had to worry about first point of contact. We kind of surrendered it. As an agent, we're like, yeah, my clients use Zillow. Yeah, they use Redfin. Yeah, they have all this stuff. They still hire me. They still use me. So that's why you hear us saying service and conversion. And as long as I do my lead gen, I'm okay, because that's true today. Yet the real battle is for first point of contact, because what happens is through that consumer experience and compelling offers, they have a way of just siphoning off 1, 2, 5, 10% of our business. Like take the Amazon thing that people are talking about so much. And it's funny, the argument is, well, that's not a real compelling offer. I'm like, that doesn't matter. The point is, Amazon is first point of contact, period, for all of us. Not yet for real estate, but what if? What if tomorrow they made their entire homepage about click here to buy a home through us, and we're going to give you $20,000 cash if you use our service? Because they could do that. And they literally created the profit as a distraction on the way to market share conversation. They're known for that. So if they wanted to, what if they made the offer $50,000? How many of your database would click on that and say goodbye to you?
Sayonara, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the environment in. They could literally do that tomorrow. They might
Yeah.
watch this and do it, and I hope not. So the question is like, so it's naive for us to say that we're gonna surrender first point of contact and somehow our relationship's gonna be enough. We're going to have to compete at the billion-dollar level, and there's no agent that can do that on their own. So then I go back to, okay, then we got to look to our brokerage somehow to put $1 billion in this with my name on it so that I can go head to head against Amazon. It's not the brokerage that needs to go head to head against them or Redfin or Open Door. Open Door just announced yesterday that they are now going to rep buyers and buy their house for them in cash and then resell it to them later once their home closes. And so you just see all these moves, and every move is like, well, that doesn't really scare me. That doesn't scare me. Just understand there's enough power and money there that they could quadruple that overnight once they see what works. And as an agent, not as a brokerage, as an agent, I've got to compete with that head to head. And I don't see any other brokerages that are putting me in that fight. Some of them are going out there to put themselves in that fight. Most of them aren't. They're like, I'll create a marketplace for you to have all your own tech to go do that. None of that stuff can compete at that level. Or they could buy it, right? I mean, we use tech right now that I don't know the owners wouldn't take a $500 million offer.
Yeah, and these are all the beginning plays with these people, right? Like this is just the beginning. Like
Yeah.
Who knows what's coming down the pipeline? And I think people forget about that often. And they're so focused on right now. So it's been interesting to watch your posts and to get people's thoughts around that. What would that have looked like, just out of curiosity, brokerage wise, like what would the whole brokerages have moved if you guys had made a move?
I don't know. I can answer that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think legally I would have been able to do that, but yeah.
If the team was at least looking at different options.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind saying it out loud. Is that I'm the guy that actually did go look at everything. Yeah. I have not been KW Kool-Aid only, buy it all, read it all. Like I'm the skeptic, and I was a disbeliever, and I don't mind saying it publicly now. And then I also treated KW that way. And then I went back, and it wasn't, oh, Gary wooed me or anything like that. I looked at everything. I brought in tech people and said, tell me if it's right, if it's real or not. And the strategy lines up, the technology actually works. And he's the only one that is attempting to put something in my pocket to go head to head against Open Door, Amazon, Zillow, and Redfin. He's the only one. And not trying to charge me for it, or get between me and them. He's putting me out front, and nobody else has that strategy. Nobody else, I believe, has the character or heart, because I've met every person, good people. They're all playing a different game, and the game is not, hey, let me do what's best for my agents.
Make no mistake about it, Linzee, Christy, and everybody's watching, that our decision to be in KW was a highly researched one. It wasn't an impulse or fear of change one.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I actually turned down a lot to stay, and it's because there's a lot of lives that we're responsible for, and our mission matters more to us than everything. And the cost to stay has been significant, yet it is the path, because like we've looked at everything, and this is the only path that makes any sense for somebody that's in real estate.
So knowing this is the path, those who are already have agreed and said, yes, I'm committed to that same path, what are the action steps? What are you doing to prepare your team for tomorrow in real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say it's a really great question. So we actually have perspectives both as brokerage owners as well as team owners. So I'll let you speak majorly about this, but it's one of the things that we know is going to happen is pressure on profit margins, right, throughout the entire industry. So by the way, it's no different than a downturn, if you will. Right? So how do you prepare for that?
Well, and the beauty of it, here's the cool thing, is when you take exactly what he just said, like it's no different than a downturn. What's the good side of a downturn? it's usually the biggest land grab opportunity for the really wise people. So for us, we're actually very excited. It sounds like we're saying doom and gloom and fear, and all that is wake people up. The truth is, because we've been proactive, we're now putting ourselves in a place where we're getting ready to witness the biggest land grab in the history of real estate sales and brokerage ever, because so many people are going to get rocked and they're going the wrong direction or they're waiting too long. So you're just going to see this huge black hole appear of us sucking up all of the market in both brokerage and sales. And we're going to, and so we're preparing not for just scaling back or survival. We're actually getting our 5 Doors partners ready to be able to triple their market share in a very short window. And you're going to see more and more people align with us and join in 5 Doors, because we're going to be able to take any city there is and take somebody who's about $80,000 to $100,000 a month GCI and get them to $200,000-300,000, numbers that we rarely see from an individual team. We're going to be able to take our brokerage from a 550 agent footprint, even in a small area, and not only expand our brokerage world, but even just take that to the thousands of agents because of how all of this works and the preparation we have on that. So we're actually in a place where we're doing more hiring. We have bigger opportunities. We're hiring more talented people and looking for bigger producers to align with, because those that get that and want that, like, we're doing all the work to build what it takes to be able to get first in on the land grab. So now more than ever, we've got bigger opportunities than we ever have, because this land grab is coming up, and there's a lot of people that are just too late to it inside of that. So specifically, getting the technology behind the scenes ready for that inside of customization, not just getting it on, but customizing it. And then preparing our profit margins now. We're cutting our expenses so that we have more cash to be able to move forward when the time's right, and building those reserves inside of that. Hiring more talented, bigger people. We're hiring people that are smarter than us right now, yes, like in money and operations and things like that. And then we're working specifically on the digital side to work on our conversion funnels and capture methods. And then now we're getting to a place where we're ready to start teaching our agents the scripts necessary to get their consumers ready. I think we're actually getting ready to enter an education phase for the consumer. It's time to actually teach our consumers what's happening.
Yeah.
And we're preparing our agents. So we're building the platform for people to partner with us to go triple their market. It's going to be crazy. You're going to be able to triple market share like that. And because people are in brokerage side. So we even have brokerages that are wanting to kind of join our brokerage network.
From around the country.
Yeah, from around the country and from this part of the country, so that because they see the centralized team that we've put together, and we're going to be able to help them move forward in a big way. So there's a lot of like $1 million GCI mega agent teams out there that are starting to line up and partner with us on that. And then there's a lot of market centers actually that are recognizing about the consolidation as power move and jumping into our system too. So it's really exciting time for us to move forward in that.
Yeah, that's something that I've been watching for a little while is watching these little brokerages. I'm like, they're going to either join bigger brokerages and move over, or teams even, which I think is just such a different world that we'll be living in. So I'm excited to watch it on one hand and kind of a little freaked out on the other, I think, as other people are as well. Walk me through, if you're willing to answer this, what brokerages do you think will be standing once all of this stuff happens? Like, what's your take on which ones are still going to be there?
It's early. That's a tough question. I think
front runners.
Yeah.
In the future world, Zillow is the behemoth that needs to be upseated, and I think they're actually struggling. I think they will struggle. It's funny, they're actually using like 10, 12-year-old technology, so they've got to recode a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Redfin, Open Door are the most dangerous, and those two now working together are pretty dangerous, although they haven't proven that they can scale very fast. Yesterday they said, Redfin said that they're ready to start scaling, so they haven't proven scale.
Yeah.
And so I would watch those, and then Amazon is the one that if they chose to go all in, would have the strength and the might to do it. Like they got $100 billion. They could buy Realgy, the entire company, for pocket change, right? And and they're an acquirer too. They do like to buy businesses, as all those big ones do. So those would be the ones to watch. And then when it comes to every other brokerage that's you see currently, I don't see, and I'm telling you this as a neutral person that doesn't appear to be neutral, there's nobody that has a chance for a KW. I actually think out of that entire list I give you, you can quote me on this, it's actually a battle for second place right now. And because when you study platforms and digital evolution, the user count actually becomes key for more data, for more insights, and to power artificial intelligence, and for more market share. And we have the largest sales force that's unified under one brand in the world on interconnected data. So all we need to do is somewhat match the data, and then there's nobody that has enough time to get into first place. Yeah. So actually, I think it's a battle for second place.
I love that answer.
We'll come back and interview you a year from now.
We'll be less.
Bring all those quotes up.
Winner take all is a phenomenon that's happened across many industries, and it doesn't mean all. It means like search engines. Like there's Google, Microsoft, Bing, and then like kind of nobody else, right? Yahoo, and then so what happens? There ends up being 3, 4, 5 companies, but one that's extremely dominant, a second one that we all know, and a third one that some of us remember, and are they still open? And then a few other ones. That will happen. Real estate's so segmented, it'll take longer. Like
I was just going to ask, how long do you think it'll be till that happens?
It'll be gradually, then suddenly. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of saying timelines yet. Real estate's more difficult because like 80% of NAR is a mom and pop brokerage actually, and yet that you just see how that has to get swallowed up. It just like what you said, it has to get swallowed up. So there'll be a version of winner take all. So we'll be dealing with probably 3 or 4 companies that we all know and almost nobody else. That will happen. Amazing. And there'll probably be about 600,000 realtors, and you'll probably see 200,000 of them at KW.
It'll be interesting. It'll be fun to play this again in a few years, maybe even just 2 years, 1 year. Yep. Very cool. So. All right, awesome. Well, I want to respect your time. We are so thankful for you guys being our first episode here. We're really excited that we got to spend the whole hour with you and allow everybody here to listen to your thoughts and on leadership, but as well as, what's happening in the real estate world. So we're super thankful. We have episode 2 next Friday at 2:00 is going to have Sarah Reynolds and her DOO, Jen, which will be really great. They've built an amazing business. We're super excited about that. Our 3rd episode is lined up with Rock Thomas, and he will have Ken Eslick on there, who's taking over M1, which is the March to a Million. And so we're lining up some really great people. We've got more to come. And again, we're just super thankful for you guys spending time with us. Thank you so much for pouring into us.
You guys posted some great nuggets, awesome nuggets. I took great notes.
Awesome.
Our pleasure.
It's an honor. Thank you for all you two are doing. Love this.
We love it.
All right.
Thank you.
See you guys next week.
Bye.